Hello there, Cindy Saddleman here with Game Show Gumbo. Now, the last long form video that I did, aside from best, worst, and blandest, you probably remember that was the top 5 worst replacement hosts of all time when it comes to game shows. Now, I'm going to do the inverse of that. What if you have a show that is pretty good, but it's got the wrong host and you need something else to take it over the top? Or need to replace a host who is either retiring, has passed on, or just wants to explore new opportunities. I mean, these things happen. Well, now's the time we talk about the best replacement hosts in game show history.
One thing was for sure. They both believed Sparks to be a total tool.
Be an exciting contest which shows that divorced couples can still have fun together, right?
Mythological hero H-list. C. On the spot dice spin.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Now, I have a lot of international fans on this channel, and I just want to tell you, these selections are based on American game shows only. I could do a full top 5, with honorable mentions, of course, about international hosts. Like, for example, Les Dennis for Max Bygraves on the UK Family Feud or Family Fortunes. John Burgess for Ernie Sigley on the Australian Wheel of Fortune. Jim Perry for Dave Duvall on Definition in Canada. I will do an international list of the worst and best replacement hosts in the future, but this video is strictly American game shows only. And now, let's start the countdown. Now, some people might not consider American Gladiators a game show, but the competition aspect, the grand prize at the end, I gotta put in the realm of game shows, because you're competing against one another to try to win a prize in a game situation that isn't legitimate sport, like soccer or football or baseball or darts even. So this time around, I gotta go with Larry Zonka for Todd Christensen on American Gladiators. Adam Lee was the stalwart. Now, he was supposed to be the second banana to Joe Theismann. However, Adam Lee did a lot of great stuff. Theismann probably did not feel comfortable, so he got replaced by Todd Christensen. Then you had the set evolution. Todd Christensen probably didn't work out too well. He got replaced after he started to get comfortable. Then we have Zonka come in, who elevated the show just as Adam Lee elevated the show. And all of Larry Zonka's personality when he was being interviewed, when he played for the Miami Dolphins all those years ago, and when he was a commentator for football, really, really helped elevate that show. And not only that, when you see a hard hit, whether in Powerball, or Breakthrough and Conquer, or Joust, or anything like that, you would call it a Zonka Zonk. Now, not to be confused with a Zonk on Let's Make a Deal, but the Zonka Zonk meant that was a great hit. That is something that even NFL guys would be impressed by that hit. And just the camaraderie that Mike Adamle had with Larry Zonka worked wonders. And you could tell when Zonka got replaced in Season 5, the show went from, well, here was Season 3. Season 4 is a little bit of a downgrade, but then Season 5 just started to fall off a cliff with Lisa Milosky. I thought about putting her on the worst list, but when you're replacing somebody that great, like Larry Zonka, and still kind of hold your own, you didn't do too bad. So, Larry Zonka, number 5, he deserves it. Going back to the worst list, I said this person does not belong on the worst list, and I put him on the dishonorable mentions part as a joke. Yes, I am sticking by it. Drew Carey is a great host, and that's why he's number 4 on the list. Drew Carey for Bob Barker on The Price is Right. I still stand by this opinion. Bob Barker, in his last 3 years on the show, was robotic, was kind of painful to watch. He was Mr. Cliche. Like, anything that was out of sorts was a historical moment on The Price is Right. And that last season was just a massive ego trip, in my opinion, for Bob Barker. The one last victory lap. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I enjoy Drew Carey from his work on his sitcom, Whose Line Is It Anyway, and bringing that lounge aspect to The Price is Right and getting more out of the contestants than Bob did in those last 5 or so years has really elevated the show. It made it feel more like a party than an actual game show, and I kind of enjoy that for The Price is Right, and to a further extent, Let's Make a Deal right now on CBS, which is a complete party atmosphere, and it works wonders. And it also helps that Drew has gotten the cast more involved. Rachel Reynolds, Devin Goda, George Gray, the announcer. You know, just that James O'Halloran especially just got everything clicking into place after a rough couple of years. I mean, when you had I don't know who Mike Richards replaced. I don't think it was Stan Blitz. It escapes me. But if you watch the show now compared to his first couple of years, it's night and day. It's a lot smoother. It's more fun. And I gotta give Drew Carey his due. He is one of the best replacement hosts of all time, in my opinion. My number 3 is Pat Sajak replacing Chuck Woolery on Wheel of Fortune. We all know what happened to Chuck Woolery. Chuck Woolery had the salary dispute with Merv Griffin. Merv was offering $200,000 a year. Chuck wanted $500,000. NBC offered to help pay for like $375,000 to bring down to that version. Merv said, "Nope, Chuck's fired." And then Pat Sajak came in, and then you had the nighttime version, and history speaks for itself there. Pat Sajak has kind of been the snarky interviewer compared to Chuck's genuineness, you could say, from the daytime version. But honestly, I think Pat Sajak just clicks a lot more than Chuck did. And it holds evident to this day where you watch Pat and he hasn't really lost his luster like Bob Barker did in the last few years. Now, he might have slowed down a bit, but that has to do with age and also to the fact that he had surgery a couple of years ago, which forced him to miss shows. We had Vanna White fill in for him for a few weeks while he had surgery to fix a blockage in his intestine. And when he came back, it's like he never left. And sometimes just good hosting wins out on this list, and Pat Sajak wins out. These last two helped elevate the show so much to where it would have been canceled immediately if they didn't fill in. And number 2 on this just gets edged out because one show wouldn't exist right now if it wasn't for its replacement host. So number 2 is Jeff Edwards for Mark Richards on Starrcade. Now, Mark Richards is terrible. There's no beating around the bush on that one. He didn't get the show. It was supposed to be a love letter to video games, the new video games that were coming around, and he didn't care. And condescending to the contestants, even the little kids who are on the show. Jeff Edwards comes in on behalf of Ted Turner because Starrcade at this point in time, in early '83, was on TBS, was on the Superstation TBS. And Turner said, if you want to make this show bigger, you got to get rid of Mark Richards. JM Productions did exactly that. They got rid of Mark Richards. Jeff Edwards came in. and grew a love of video games to this day. It was like an earnestness for video games. I mean, if you talk to any contestant or anybody, any staffer who was on Starcade and asked them about Jeff Edwards, he really cared about the contestants and how they did on the video games. I mean, if you take a look, there's some Starcade hotlines out there, which was this little interstitials for news updates and high scores and stuff like that. There's a video out there of Jeff Edwards beating Sinistar. Like, he beat Sinistar is hard. Like, I know a few players who will play Sinistar and not get past the first screen. Jeff managed to do that, got it on tape. And it is very impressive to even do that. Jeff was a gamer until he died, and it's all thanks to Starcade. Jeff in the mid-90s was a very big Quake player from what I remember. I don't know if he still played video games when he passed on in 2013. But he made that show memorable. And just the commentary he had for the games, the really rooting for the contestants, especially to win their own video arcade game, or a robot that didn't work, or a jukebox that had like $300 worth of records from K-Tel. And I gotta say, he makes that show watchable. And here's the proof why I put him at number 2. I originally had him, when I originally recorded this, I had him at 4. But I was alerted to this fact and why I put him in 2. When G4, in its revival, had Starcade on, they live streamed it. And when Starcade aired, everybody was like, yes, Jeff Edwards! And then when Mark Ridge started like, oh, boo. That's how much Jeff Edwards meant to Starcade and everybody who watched Starcade. He was the best. And that's why I have him at number 2. I don't have him at 1, and I'll explain why. But before I do that, here's some honorable mentions. Let's Make a Deal in 90 was failing with Bob Hilton as host. Maybe it was a bad time slot. Maybe it was because the times they were changing. But in order to Hail Mary attempt to save the show, they brought in Monty Hall. And Monty Hall did his damnedest to try to make it work. Unfortunately, the show got canceled anyways because NBC would NBC. Now, I also wanted to do an honorable mention on the honorable mention, which was Bob Eubanks for Gary Kroger on the Newlywed Game. Kind of fits in the same pattern because you're replacing a new host with the old host. And unlike Richard Dawson replacing Ray Combs on Family Feud, which didn't work, it worked for both Bob Eubanks and Monty Hall. I just don't think it was enough to save. It wasn't enough to save Let's Make a Deal. However, Bob Eubanks was good, and I think you consider Bob Eubanks replacing Gary Kroger as the unofficial number 6. This is one of the more confusing ones because you have CanCon into play, even though it really didn't need to come into play. Maybe Mike Darrow wanted more money for the show being moved to Toronto. So Alex Trebek took over, even when he wasn't doing much of anything around this time because Double Dare had just been canceled. And that was the hardest quiz show he'd been working on. Now we got this show. Watching Alex Trebek on this show, he was pretty good. I just don't think the upgrade from Mike Darrow was enough in order to put him on the list. But still really damn good, though. These two helped replace the weasel known as Mike Richards on Jeopardy. They deserve all of the love. Ken Jennings has done a fantastic job filling in. He was the first one to fill in for Alex after his death, and is kind of the de facto permanent host of the syndicated version, whereas Mayim Bialik is the de facto host of Celebrity Jeopardy and any special tournaments that they have on ABC, with the exception of a special Grandmasters tournament that's going to be taking place soon, which is going to be hosted by Ken Jennings. It leads me to this. Both of these hosts are great. Although I would like to ask Michael Davies, please pick one. Just pick one. Is it going to be Ken or is it going to be Maim? If it's Ken being the permanent host, then allow him to do Celebrity Jeopardy. If it's Maim, have her do everything. I don't know how that's going to work with Call Me Kat still on the air. I don't know if Fox is going to cancel it or not because the ratings aren't as good as it was a couple of years back. I just know that it's just a mess. I know they're trying their best to work it out between both their schedules, although Ken's is a lot more open than Maim's. All I'm asking is just pick one, go with it, and the show will still be great and people are still going to watch because it's one of the best quiz shows of all time, and it's been fantastic ever since Michael Davies took it over. Sometimes you just have to look at the cold, hard truth that this show would not be on the air today, and the effect of this show not being on the air today would be like the butterfly effect. That all of the revivals that we have seen over the past few years would not exist without Steve Harvey replacing John O'Hurley on Family Feud. There's no way. Because of Steve Harvey and his mannerisms and the way he deftly handles every single situation on Family Feud and the way that it's become an internet sensation. Like, when you had Steve Harvey take over, we saw these first few clips of some of the bad answers and how Steve Harvey reacted. It was like, damn, you got something. And then the ratings bore it out. Like, I remember John O'Hurley's last season was averaging like 1.6, 1.7, and we thought the show was going to get canceled. Steve Harvey takes it over, and now the show is grew to like a 3.0. And it was climbing. And now, some weeks, it's on the top of the heap. Some weeks it's a little behind Jeopardy, but it's up there, either number 1 or number 2. And it's all thanks to Steve Harvey. And because of Steve Harvey and help bring Family Feud back to prominence, we had Celebrity Family Feud tried again on ABC. It was the start of Summer Fun and Games with Celebrity Family Feud, BattleBots, I think 500 questions. But later on, because Celebrity Family Feud was the stalwart, getting a whole bunch of great ratings, you had other game shows come back to help supplement it. To Tell the Truth, Match Game, Press Your Luck, to lesser extents, Card Sharks, Supermarket Sweep. And now we have Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, Celebrity Jeopardy, and other networks have tried to capitalize on the success of Summer Fun and Games, especially with Celebrity Family Feud with Steve Harvey. NBC brought back The Weakest Link, Password, and they recently tried The Wheel. CBS tried a whole bunch of primetime games after the success of Celebrity Family Feud with Candy Crush, $1 Million Mile, and more recently Lingo. They also had The Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal at Night, which has been a lot more successful. None of this would be possible without Steve Harvey replacing John O'Hurley on Family Feud. Steve Harvey helped revitalize a genre. And, as a little bit of a bonus, because of Steve Harvey's overnight success, and the way that he was so good at hosting Family Feud, you've had a long list of imitators who tried to ape his style. Some of it from his own comedy family of the original Kings of Comedy. We had Cedric the Entertainer try to ape him on Millionaire, it didn't work. Bill Bellamy on Let's Ask America, it didn't work. I think the closest that tried to ape his style and do it well enough, David Allen Greer on Snap Decision. But even then, that was a different type of show and it just didn't work. But you know what? Beside that, it's just an amazing show with Steve Harvey. It is a fun show to watch with Steve Harvey. Not just the contestants being dumb, but the contestants being entertaining. The manners, you never know what you're going to get with Steve Harvey. And sometimes it's the best thing. Without Steve Harvey, you do not get any of the big game shows that we have right now. And that's a fact. Steve Harvey is the best replacement game show host of all time and is quickly making a case, in my opinion, for being one of the best game show hosts of all time, period. Well, that's going to do it for this countdown. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Down below on the comments, what are your picks for the best replacement hosts of all time? Leave a comment below. Give me thoughts on what you'd like to see for future best and worst top fives. Or top 5 best or top 5 worst. I'll learn how to English soon. And if you really like us, if you really like this video, you want to see more of it, subscribe. And if you want to see videos early, become a Patreon backer at patreon.com/gameshowgumbo. Just like these fine folks right up here who have subscribed to Patreon and has gotten this video early. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And until next time, bye-bye.